We have a brand new story to tell you today. Let's get started. What a farce. Why is anger management necessary for me? Well, I just did what any other guy would do. Some people were harmed, to be sure, but that was to be expected. My life was thrown into disarray by them, and now it's spinning out of control as well. What's wrong with that? Hello to everybody. Hank Wilson is my name, and it seems that I struggle with anger management. I folded my arms and leaned back, looking around the room. I was forced to attend this group counseling session by a court order. I am currently 35 years old, married, and the parent of 3 children, 2 boys, and the daughter I adore above everything. The court-appointed group counselor, Jeff, gave me his well-practiced neutral look. Could you explain to us, Hank, why the court ordered you to be here today? I let out a sigh as I felt the pressure of the stairs. I wouldn't call that a short narrative. Without skipping a beat, Jeff nodded at me. Hank, that's okay. The next 3 hours are up to us. Take as much time as you require. As I began, I suppressed the usual surge of frustration that was seething beneath my skin. I won't bother you with the details of how I met my wife, but she's named Kathy, and I used to think she was the most beautiful lady in the world. I went to a stag party, which is where it all began. My brother was getting married, and we were making a big splash when we sent him out. We went all out with our hookers and strippers. This was my younger brother, after all. I relayed every detail of it to Kathy. I didn't want any negative consequences. It was a great celebration. It began at 3 p.m. on Saturday and concluded at 7 p.m. on Sunday. Only when the police arrived because of the commotion did it cease. Over the course of the party, I had spoken to Kathy at least 12 times. My brother married, as well as departing on their honeymoon. About 3 months had passed since the party, and I believed that everything had returned to normal. After work, I went to the restroom and showered for a long time. I'll be the first to acknowledge that I smelled awful. Although my profession is fishing, I enjoy working on the docks. You know, I suppose it's because the men can be guys. We work, talk trash, and chill around. I had just gotten out of the shower when everything suddenly became black. How did it enter my restroom, though? It had to be a vehicle. I attempted to get up, but I was unable to do so for some reason. My surroundings were all hazy when I peered around. There were just 2 persons visible in front of me. My wife and her sister were standing in front of me when my eyes finally focused. Kathy responded, "So you want to cheat on me? What's wrong with you?" I eventually realized that I was duct-taped to the chair when I tried to stand up. The term duct-taped refers to the fact that it was wrapped around my ankles at least 20 times. I was unable to move 1 inch. "Leave me now," I said. "Yes, I will. You're a hole. After I get even with you," Kathy remarked. Become even? What on earth was she discussing? I took no action. I made sure my brother and I didn't violate any of the established guidelines. Both of them went. Before they returned. I must have waited there for an hour. Kathy walked in. 5 of the men from the stag group came next. I told them to release me as I glanced up. Mark had been one of my closest pals for a long time. He and I have been friends for almost 20 years. I named my baby after him since he was my best man. Other than my wife, his wife was the only lady I really trusted in the world. "You shouldn't have cheated on Kathy, Hank," Mark murmured, bending down to meet my eyes. And Kathy shoved the gag in my mouth. Before I could react. Take advantage of Kathy? I had never deceived her, and that guy knew it. They obviously screwed for 3 hours in a row. After they were done, she left me and my 5 former buddies alone and went to the shower. "Unfortunately, we didn't record it," Mark replied. "Until one of the other guys took off the gag, I just sat there motionless. I just stared at them while flexing my jaw." "She was good," Mark commented as he approached. "Screwing her has always been my goal. I simply couldn't let this opportunity pass. I had to do it even though I know we won't be friends again after this." I remained silent. I simply grinned as I glanced at him. "Hank," Mark continued. "Let it go if you don't. Someone will be harmed." Then he used what to hit me in the face. I'm not sure, but I awoke in the hospital a few hours later. Kathy was seated in the chair when I turned to look at her. I attracted the nurse's attention because she must have fallen asleep. "Would you mind making a police call for me?" "Would you please?" I inquired. I showed the nurse my wrists just as she was about to inquire why. She promised to return immediately. 5 minutes or so later she returned and said, "They're on their way." Kathy was finally awake when the cops arrived. "What was happening?" she inquired. "Hank Wilson is my name," I said. "My wife thought I was cheating on her, so she had several men tie me up and humiliate me in front of her around 7 hours ago. The fact that I never cheated is the only issue, apart from her demonstrating how much of a bitch she is. I can tell you everyone's name there. 2 of the guys are definitely police officers, I'm certain. Leave now if you're not going to perform your duties, and I'll take it to the state attorney's office when I get out." "Tell us what occurred, sir," the officer said. I told him everything that had happened during the party and what had happened. Kathy sat there in astonishment, listening. I informed the officer that in order to document everything, a tape of the party had been made. I said that it would be obvious on the recording if someone had been escorted. Kathy was approached by the officer, who motioned her to stand. As she was accused of assault and kidnapping, the officer informed her that she had the right to silence. I gave them the names of all the men who had been engaged in the event. It's time to bring the agony, I told myself. I was injured. It was time to harm all those concerned. This wasn't over, Kathy assured me as she turned to face me as she was being released. Hank, you're lying, and I'll hold you accountable. She was also charged with threatening my person, the officer informed her. After a poor hospital stay, I devised a strategy to deal with the discomfort. I needed to gather on a good number of licks. I had to be certain that I truly wanted to exact revenge because this was going to affect a lot of people. I thus created a list. I was admitted to the hospital first. Secondly, they placed me in the hospital after lying to me. Third, they placed me in the hospital and screwed my wife. Fourth, my wife assisted in getting me into the hospital. She is a 304. So much for the list. Then, in addition to the fact that I'm in the hospital, they may have the 304. Even if it means my death, I'm getting even. I might do what I had intended. For the following week, I sat in the hospital making plans and schemes. I went to the bank after leaving the hospital. The teller informed me that my wife had been attempting to withdraw money while I was there, and I pulled out $500. When she saw that none of my accounts had her name on them, she became enraged. When she returned with her attorney, she was informed that none of the accounts had her name on them. They were furious as they departed. I immediately went to ask my brother whether he knew of a decent attorney. He asked me how I could have our friends imprisoned since he was furious with me. He rushed out and stopped me as I turned to go. What's happening? Hank? My brother was asked. I told him and his wife everything that had transpired over the course of the following hour. Their lips were gaping and their eyes were bulging as they sat there. His wife gave me a look and accused me of lying after I was done. I never lie, my brother assured her, so she should keep her mouth shut. You should keep your mouth shut since you don't know nothing, she advised him. What was wrong with her? He asked. If you're on the side of 304, then leave. You idiot, he is my brother. After giving him a quick glance, she got up, walked into their bedroom, grabbed her pocketbook and informed him that she was leaving. Let me make this very obvious to you, my brother said, looking her in the eye. Please let me know if you become embroiled in this, and decide not to support my brother. Because you are either with us or not, we may have this marriage dissolved. She gave him a quick glance before leaving. The automobile started, and we heard it. The door then opened, and she dropped her wedding ring on the floor as she entered. So be it, my brother said. Then she walked away. We both went to a lawyer as our initial course of action. We implemented my plan. By the end of the week, the crap would hit the fan. D-Day on Friday got off to a spectacular start. Kathy was going for work at 9 when my realtor put a for sale sign in my front yard. What are you doing? Kathy exclaimed as she leaped from the automobile. The documents displaying the house for sale were presented to her by the agent. He can't do this, Kathy cried. Yes, he can. It's his home. Kathy's employer stated he was looking for her when he arrived at work with a young man. Are you Kathy Wilson? He inquired. Yes, I'm Kathy Wilson, Kathy said. You've been served, he replied, passing her a big brown package. I got at least 50 phone calls later that day. 5 spouses questioned the situation. I shared the entire story with all of them. I didn't omit anything. At least 30 death threats were sent to me. All of them I recorded. I couldn't stop giggling while they were yelling. They looked much more enraged by it. I'll never understand why you would believe a man would get even if you beat him up and screwed his wife. My attorney handed 5 sets of civil lawsuits the next day. I was requesting $5 million each. I filed a lawsuit against Kathy for stealing private property and causing bodily harm. I merely chugged along with my brother. He had a couple encounters with our alleged family members and acquaintances. The day of the assault charges trial was drawing near. My brother's wife wanted to chat, but both she and he had already made up their minds. The day before the trial, Mark came out from behind a car and attempted to grab me as I was leaving work. Naturally, I accidentally shot him in the balls as I brought out MY.38. He was yelling that I had attempted to murder him when the cops arrived. I informed the police what had happened and asked them to check the security camera footage if they didn't believe me. As Mark began to look around, he noticed that there were cameras everywhere. Don't worry, Mark, even if you're a complete moron. They may be able to put your balls back on. We know who will be the bitch in jail, though, if they are unable to. In jail, a man without balls. Boy, you'll be very popular, I said. The officer came back with the security tapes and asked to see my gun permit. I pulled it out and showed it to him. The officer said I was free to go. The trial was a slam dunk. The stag party tape not only showed that I never cheated, it also showed me calling Kathy every few hours. Mark and Kathy decided to stand trial together. She just knew they would walk away free and clear. The judge asked Kathy, who told her I cheated. And she said, Mark's attorney said that it was a lie. He said Kathy was a 304 and had always wanted Mark to screw her. Kathy sat on the stand with her mouth open. Her attorney yelled objection and asked for a recess. Kathy's attorney came over to me and asked me to talk with him for a minute. Hank, I know you hate her right now, but can you just let her go down in flames? He asked. Why would I help that bitch? I replied. They tied me up and put me in the hospital. And you want me to help her? Screw her. I could have died. Let her fry, I said as I walked away. He asked if she could speak to me for a second. Hank, I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. I was just so mad. I never thought he would have set me up. Come on, Hank, you know I have a bad temper. Hank, I know you still love me. Somewhere deep down you love me. So please put aside your pride and please help me, said Kathy. Kathy, you hurt me. I mean, you really hurt me. I'm going to go against my better judgment and ask the DA to take it easy on you, I said as I left to go chat with the DA. I smiled and walked over to the DA and bent down by his ear. Fry this bitch, please. I looked over at them and gave them the thumbs up. I would help her like she helped me while I was tied and beat down. Now you want my help? Kathy was sentenced to 8 years. Mark was sentenced to 25 years. When the rest of the guys learned about the length of the jail sentences, they all wanted to make deals. Mark's wife, Karen, came up to me after he was sentenced. Hank, I know he hurt you and ruined your marriage. Did you have to do this to us? Asked Karen. Karen, I know you're hurting, but they tied me down. Your husband hit me so much I had a week's stay in the hospital. They and Kathy left, me sitting there bleeding. I did what needed to be done. I wanted to kill them all. At least this way you have something to look forward to. He'll get out someday and you guys can move on. But I lost my wife, my friends, and some family, so who was hurt more? I turned and walked away. You would think the story ends there, but it doesn't. I'm in anger management class because while Mark was in jail awaiting transport to prison, I was arrested for drunk driving. While serving my 10 days, I kicked his butt as many times as I could. I bashed him in the face while we were in the rec room. I hit him with a metal tray. I kicked him in what was left of his balls 10 times. When I had to face the judge, he said he figured out what I had done. He gave me a $50 fine and time served. Over the next 4 trials, I managed to get even with every one of those maggots. 2 of them got jumped during a bar fight. While the cops were on the way, someone happened to have a taser gun. They both took over 1,000 volts to the nuts. The last 2 were beaten by 4 masked guys. Funny thing, I was in Texas visiting my cousin. So now I'm sitting here talking with you guys because the judge thinks I have anger issues. They all sat there for a minute, and then they started clapping. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Jeff stood up and said, Hank, you need to learn to go with the flow and not seek revenge. Benny looked at me and tapped my hand. Hank, you don't have to worry about losing money in your divorce. Burke and the others are in prison. What more could you ask for? Not one damn thing, I said. Not one damn thing. I found out during the class that those a-holes got off easy. One of the guys in the class caught his wife cheating and shoved an axe handle up the guy's butthole. Another one placed a pair of vice grips on his wife's lover's meat and locked it down. The guy who scared me the most was a doctor. He drugged his wife's lover and took off his balls. They all served at least 5 years. And as part of their parole, they had to come to this class. I guess the judge is trying to tell me something. My brother's wife is back home and is trying everything to get him to forgive her. Kathy was her best friend, so I told him to at least try. I let him know that she had chosen our side because she could have told Kathy what was planned, and she didn't. I'm dating this wild redhead I met while at the prison giving Kathy the final divorce papers. It seems that she was there for the same thing. Karen's divorce from Mark was now final, and she asked me out to talk about what Mark asked her to do. It seems that Mark has a few new friends in prison, and he wants her to kill me so he can ask for a new trial. So she told him about her plan for revenge. Mark, I promise you that Hank will pay. I will make it slow and lasting. He will look into my eyes and know how I feel about what happened, said Karen. Mark was a very happy man, and Karen was right. I saw nothing but love during that moment of connection. Kathy writes me every week asking me to come talk to her. She knows she was wrong. It's just that she was so mad. She has even been going to group to talk about her issues. I know how that feels. How am I feeling right now? Pretty damn good. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.